Welcome everybody to a brand new series I'm starting here in TEW 2020, as what I'm going to try to do here is a series in the Cornellverse 1997 database. If you don't know what that is, basically it's a database created by Derek B, I think, on the Grey Dog forums, and it basically puts you back in 1997 in the Cornellverse, and basically sets up a situation where basically where the history of that fake past go from here. And the basic setup, for those who aren't aware of the Cornellverse, is basically, I'll just do it here. So the company's the Supreme Wrestling Federation dominated, basically Richard Eisen and Vince McMahon. But in this version of reality, Vince, the big Fed, in this case, the Supreme Wrestling Federation, took over everything. So, there is no Crockett, there is no other small feds. It was just SWF, basically, a bunch of outlaw companies. But however, Hollyweird Grappling Company, set up by billionaire J.K. Stallings as the first direct rival of the SWF in almost 2 decades since the national expansion. So basically, this is basically your WCW clone. Only it's what if Crockett never existed, and basically if Billionaire Ted was an 18-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid rather, who who is a tech billionaire, and basically what happens is he basically had all the money and signed up all the big stars from a couple years ago, along with signing a bunch of international stars and up and comers as well. And one other thing to note here is the reason he's 16 is in the initial version of this game, which was back in 2005. The whole idea was he was a really young owner. So when you set it back to when this company successfully banned in 1997, it makes him look really young. And ironically, it's close. That's the first version of TW is closer to this database than the current database. But regardless, so let's go over our roster. First look at a couple things. So we've got $25 million, so that's good. Our product is no style. So this is basically all sorts of stuff can happen. Events and TV, so we have Hollyweird TV every week. It's 2 hours, and then we have monthly pay-per-views. Hollyweird is our big show in March. Let's see here, anything else? Company info, size. Because we actually start out as a small company, because we need to get Mid-South. Okay, so basically, so we'll turn medium basically during our first TV show, right? Yeah. I didn't realize. Oh, right. Okay, yeah. To get the medium, we need to get up to a 59 in the Southwest plus 35 in another place. As soon as we get over the 59 in the Southwest, we'll be a medium company. Merchandise. Let's go ahead and start that upgrade. And if you look at our merch, it shows who's really popular. So we'll go over the roster, then we'll go over owner goals, and then we'll go from there. So we'll start with our major stars. So major stars is Coach Dick Bronziano, who's a former gym teacher turned pro wrestling manager. His sports team stable, the All-Star team, came to the famous SW back in the 70s, and was a major actor until the late 80s, with his son Richie as a main star for several years. So this is kind of there isn't direct real world comparison, but sort of if Bobby Heenan, no, it's more if one of the old WWF managers had a son, and and then there's Dusty Streets, who is basically the son of Rocky Streets and SWF Hall of Fame, and brother of SWF Supreme Star Sid Streets. So again, he's kind of he's basically an older. He's kind of a combination of Randy Savage because of the whole Poffo family thing, but also Dusty Rhodes. But if you look at his skills, he's not that good, but he's still really charismatic, decently charismatic. But I still probably down. So we have Ripcord, who Ripcord is basically Ric Flair if he actually got a giant, if he had a giant drinking problem, went to Japan to basically heal himself, and came back, but he was already 40. So I guess not really Ric Flair, because Ric Flair wasn't quite 47 in 97, was he? Maybe he was. But yeah. And then Sam Strong. Sam Strong is Hulk Hogan. Yeah, I mean, he's just Hulk Hogan, who's actually not even slightly better, but like a kind of better wrestler. And he's also our character because he's like the booker in this game as well. And then stars. We've got Brian Vesey and Larry Vesey. They're the Steiners. I mean, let's not pretend. They're the Steiners. Julie Flame and Teddy Flame are both old. So they're sort of like the rock and rolls. They're basically the rock and rollers. The rock and rolls if they were a little more towards like hair metal and like a little older by 97 and all sorts of fun stuff. But like they're still around and they're still there. You got Richie Prentice Jr., who's again the team member, who's basically like I said. We got Cobra and Viper, who's basically like again two really they don't have a great cut, like they're basically like an old tag team, so but they're not the LOD because we have the LOD sort of analogs coming a little longer. I don't know. I don't always. Yeah, I mean, they're basically like a tag team to Kevin Sullivan's, but what if Kevin Sullivan was much over and much more famous, I guess? Anyway. So then we got our well-knowns. Well-known includes Charlie Homicide. So, yeah. Basically kind of like Mick Foley, if Mick Foley went full into the Charles Manson gimmick. We got Romeo Hartthrob. Yeah, I mean, he's just like it's Rick. It's Rick Rude. And then we have Whistler, who's again he's Jim Duggan. And then if we go down to recognizable, we got Bizzlebub, who's like very young. He's basically our new monster. We got Demon Anger and Demon Spite. And they're basically the LOD. You know, they're the LOD, except what if the LOD was less over. Golden Fox, he's just a great wrestler. JK is the owner. Liberty is the young up-and-coming guy, basically 26, kind of like a younger Stinger, Lex Luger at this time, or, yeah. And the Danger Kid is, he's basically kind of like, I don't know, like, because he's 36, but he's not over, but he's like, he has really good, aerial skills still, and he's kind of, he's not really good on the mic, though, so I'm not sure what to do with him. And then unimportant, we've got Archie Dudge, who's a road agent. We got Cowboy Ricky Dale, who's who's the future RDJ. You've got Danny Rushmore, who's just an old school powerhouse. We got Dark Eagle, who's another like guy from Japan. We got Duer Libertine, who's a ref. We got Electrico, who's again coming from Japan, who's coming from Mexico. We've got Grunt, and we got Stink, who again they're the Nasty Boys. Jack Bruce, who is a future star who will be building up. Jason Azarao, who's one of our announcers. Jason Jackson, who's basically like Dean Malenko-ish, I guess. Java and Tribal Warrior, they're big badass Samoans. Jimmy Power, veteran hand, so he's 52, which he does not look 52. So he's like really old. So I mean, he's probably a jobber here. Joel Bryant, another like straight shooter guy. Kieran Killer, who's Bizzlebub's manager. Cal Rhodes, who's another announcer. Monty Walker, who's he's basically an injury prone, coolest guy in the rooms, and he's still working currently with Dave, so kind of a Brian Pillman type of guy. Mr. Lucha, he's Mr. Lucha. Pat Deacon again. Paul Steadyfast, another good wrestler guy. Peter Valentine is Sam Strong's best friend, but he's now 33, and so I'm going to keep on pushing him because he's Sam Strong's best friend. Roman Piez, he's a high flyer. Rob Rockford, another wrestler guy. Sam Sparrow's a referee. And I think that's it. Let me see here. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, to be side, nope, nobody. Okay, titles. Everything is vacant. On the other hand, if we look at our storylines. So, storylines, all the cruiserweights are in a storyline. Buzzwub is in a storyline by himself. The East Coast Warriors are all and storyline for themselves over the hardcore title. Gold Rush, all like the top guys are in the storyline. International Incidents, basically all the like mid-card guys are in the storyline, and then all the tag teams are also in this storyline. So, the thing is, we've got 4 different titles. No, we've got 5 different titles. And the question is how we're going to give them all away. So yeah, that's sort of the thing we need to finish, because we can't do tournaments for everything. But on the other hand, like, we don't want to do like wacky stuff for all of them. So I'll figure something out. And and one other thing, our owner goals. We cannot hire extended contract vendors with less than 45 in athletic ability, and we can't hire a wrestler who's classified as a daredevil, and we can't fall below number 2 in the rankings. If for the last one, if I do that, like, that's my own fault, and I should get fired anyway. But so that's sort of the overview. I'll be back in a second with the actual first Hollyweird TV. Alright, everybody, welcome to the first edition of HGC Hollyweird TV in January of 1997. So let's get rolling. As we start out with Sam Strong and Rich Cord facing off against each other, Rich Strong basically opens the show, while Rip Cord interrupts, and after some arguing over who's going to be the first HGC World Champion, they agree to a tag team match next week, where whoever wins will get the last spot in the, who will be able to draw the last number in the Battle Royal, because it's officially canonized as a Battle Royal, but I'm going to make it like a Royal Rumble just because that's more interesting. And this gets a 99 because both these guys are really freaking good. And then we go where the announcers hype the Cruiser qualifiers tonight, which gets a 16 because these guys aren't over yet. And then we have a bout that had decent wrestling but little heat. As part of the Cruiserweight qualifiers, we had Raymond Piaz defeated Jason Jackson 841 by pinfall, the Springboard Moonsault. This gets a 52. Jackson gets a 49. Piaz gets a 40. Solid match. And Piaz is one of the heels in the Cruiserweight division, so I figured I'd have him qualify. And then Pace Celebrating gets a 25. Then we have a backstage segment with the All-Star team, where Coach is hyping up both Richie and the Vessies for their big 6-man tonight versus the Untouchables. And he just says, Untouchables thinks they're the best wrestlers in this company. Well, I've got my son and 2 of the best damn college wrestlers in history. So let's show them how it's done. And this gets a 52. And then in the actual match, any bout had great wrestling and decent reaction from the crowd. The All-Star team of Richie, Brian, and Larry defeated the Untouchables of Joel, Paul Steadyfast, and Robert Oxford in 1140. When Brian Vesey pinned Paul Steadyfast with a Vesey driver. In terms of in-ring work, Brian Vesey was head and shoulders above everybody else. So Larry gets a 71, Brian gets an 80, Richie gets a 70, Oxford gets a 53, Steadyfast gets a 41, and Brian gets a 39. And overall, the match gets a 71. And then we had a freestyle segment where basically the Demons came down and brawled with the Vessies as the Untouchables put over the tag team, the battle over the tag team titles. And this gets a 61. Solid stuff. And then we have a backstage promo with the Flames, who are putting over their main event tag match versus the Black Serpent Cult. They say they fought the Black Serpent Cult all over America, but here in Hollywood, they're going to take them out once and for all. And this gets a 56. And then in a battle had decent reaction from the crowd, decent wrestling but little heat. Charlie Homicide defeated Stink, Monty Walker, and Jack Bruce in an elimination match in 7:33. Order elimination was Stink, Jack Bruce, and then Monty Walker. This gets a 50. Homicide gets 62. Stink gets a 38. Monty gets a 38. And Jack Bruce gets a 35. And this is basically like, a hardcore brawl, because all these guys are originally from the East Coast Wars, which, again, if you're not aware of the canon, basically, instead of just ECW arriving, there's basically 4 different companies all trying to become the winner of the East Coast Wars. But this gets a 50. And then Jack Bruce and Monty Walker argue will Homicide Glowers, and this gets a 42. And then we have a Romeo Heartthrob in-ring. Look at any recruit in-ring, and there you go. This gets a 66. And then in the actual match, an extremely short match, Romeo Heartthrob defeated the Danger Kid in 5-12 by pinfall. Romeo gets a 50, Danger Kid gets a 52. And overall, this gets a 48. And then we have Bizzlebutt backstage with Karen Killer. This gets a 41, as Killer just, does a promo about how, the rest of the HGC should watch out, because what's going to happen in this match is a preview of what's going to happen to the whole roster. Then the actual match, which gets a 46, and about a decent wrestling, but didn't have much heat. Beelzebub defeated Cowboy Ricky Dale in 5:37 by pinfall with a Hades Bomb. This gets a 46. Like I said, Cowboy does the best he can. But at the end of the day, Beelzebub's a monster, and he gets a 44. Cowboy gets a 47. And Beelzebub continues the attack, but Liberty makes a save, and that gets a 39. And then we have a Dusty Streets promo where he says, Sam Strong and Rick Porter both, assuming they're going to be the last one standing in the big battle royal. But you got to remember Dusty Streets, because you always have to be ready to fight on the streets. I don't know. I was trying to think of a catchphrase, and that's the best I could. But this gets an 81. And then in our other Cruiserweight qualifier, and about that great wrestling and a decent reaction from the crowd, Golden Fox defeated Dark Eagle in 10:21 by pinfall to Flying Flocks. This gets a 65. Dark Eagle gets a 60. Golden Fox gets a 59. And then Golden Fox Celebrating gets a 54. And then in our main event, which gets a 69, and about that fantastic heat and great wrestling, Black Serpent Colt defeated the Blazing Flames in 12:06 when Cobra submitted to Flame with the Cobra Constructor Vice after blatantly cheating. So basically, the heels cheat, they get the big heel win, and this gets a 69, Viper gets a 60, Cobra gets a 63, Teddy gets a 61, Joey gets a 63. And then, the Black Serpent Colt are, celebrating their win when the Unders say that something's happening outside of the arena, and then the end of the show to get an 82. Outside of the arena, Cord is pile driving Whistler and then screams at Strong as he comes out that, you're not going to get your preferred partner next week, well, I will. That's why, because I'm the smartest man in professional wrestling, Strong. Don't you ever forget that. And he walks away as, Strong, being a good babyface, calls for, medical officials to take care of Whistler. And this gets a 77, which improves our popularity. Let's see what sort of mail we get. And this is going to take a moment. Survey says, okay, so we got a 1.15 TV rating, so not bad at all. We've got our storylines. Oh, okay, well. So yeah, we have one really hot storyline, and we got 68 for Tag Team Gold Rush. International Instance is 55. East Coast Warriors is 45. Demon Rising is at 47, and Cruiser Revolution is at 45. So yeah, but we've got Electrico, Monty Walker, and Mr. Lucha still to go as far as people who could qualify. And then I still need to figure out what I'm actually going to do for the Hardcore Championship. Gold Rush, like I said, there's going to be a Battle Royal. So that'll just determine that. For International Incidents, again, if you notice, a lot of the same people in the same storylines, that's something else I've noticed, so I'll have to figure that out as far as who's going to be, going for the actual titles. And then there's, all these guys. If I counted out right, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think there's only, overall there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 people. But the coach is one of them, so. And also both members. No, okay. So we got Brian Vesey and Larry. That's 1. We got Cobra and Viper. That's 2. We got Demon Anger and Demon Spite. That's 3. We got Rent and Stink. That's 4. We got Drive and Drive Royal. That's 5. We got Joel Bryan, Robert Rockford. That's 6. And we got Joey Flame and Teddy Flame, and that's 7. So yeah, there you go. That makes sense. But regardless, I'm going to try to do 2 shows because I'm trying to get about a half an hour a piece for these videos because I think that's a good, decent number to push this out. And plus, these are pretty easy to book, so why not just move on? So I'll be back in just a moment. Alright, it's now time for the second edition of HGC Hollyweird TV, so let's get rolling. So basically the show starts out with Sam Strong promising to have a partner, brother, and it doesn't matter who Rip brings, because he's the strongest one there is. Gets 97 because Sam Strong is awesome. And then we have an extras hype matches, including Electrico facing Monty Walker for the final spot in the Cruiserweight decision match, and Mr. Lucha making a challenge. This gets an 11 because none of these guys are over yet. Then in our opening match, in about that decent wrestling from the crowd, decent wrestling but non-existent crowd heat, Electrico defeated Monty Walker 9:34 by pinfall of electroshock. This gets a 51. Monty Walker gets a 51. Electro gets a 36. And got the crowd buzzing. And Monty Walker whines. Jack Bruce comes out and challenges him to a match next week. And this gets a 37. Then we have a Demons promo where basically they can talk about like they're the best tag team in history of professional wrestling, and they're going to take apart, rip apart, and tear apart whoever's faces them. And that gets a 47. Then in a match, we had in a good match, we could say 63, Richie Prangrazzo defeated Dean Anger in 9:25 by disqualification. Back and forth match, Richie Prangrazzo uses his skills, but Dean Anger gets angry, brings a chair in, something like that, and Richie gets a 60, Dean Anger gets a 53. And then the Demons go for the Demon Drop at the Vicey Save, which gets a 55. Then we have a Peter Valentine promo saying, he's here to make an impact in professional wrestling once again. And this gets an 11 because Valentine is not over at all. And then we had Mr. Lucha calls out Charlie Homicide of all people. This gets a 42. Then the actual match, and about that it's superb wrestling and decent reaction from the crowd. Mr. Lucha defeated Charlie Homicide in 9:52 by pinfall the Master Drop. So this gets a 76. This is a lot better than I thought it would be. Like, a lot better. But regardless, Lucha goes over. Lucha gets 69. Homicide gets 62. And then Lucha celebrating gets a 48. And then Liberty challenges Beelzebub for next week, which gets a 30 because Liberty is not over yet. And then in about that terrible wrestling analysis and crowd heat, Savage Fury defeated Nathan the Filth in 5:46 when Java pinned Grunt with the greetings from the island. This gets a 33. Grunt gets a 32. Stink gets a 19. Tiber Roller gets 33. Java gets a 28. So, and also, these guys were both heels, so that also didn't help. But the Savage Fury celebrating gets a 32. And then we see Dusty Streets enter Strong's locker room, which gets a 75. Then we had about that decent wrestling, but didn't have much heat. Beelzebub defeated Jason Jackson in 5:46 by handled the Hades Bomb. This gets a 45. Beelzebub gets a 48. Jason Jackson gets a 42. And then Killer accepts the challenge and says it's going to be your funeral. Or no, actually, Beelzebub takes the mic and says, your funeral, or something scary like that, which gets a 34. And then Ripcord comes out with Romy Heartthrob, which gets an 80. And then Sam Strong does come out with Dusty Streets as an exceptional match. Ripcord and Romy Heartthrob defeated Sam Strong and Dusty Streets in 1943 when Cord pinned Dusty Streets with a Ripcord DDT following interference from Peter Valentine of all people. So Dusty gets a 67, Sam Strong gets a 98, Romeo gets a 55, Ripcord gets a 90. Overall, the match gets a 79. Then the baby faces, then the heel celebrating, while Strong fumes, gets a 73 to end the show. And overall, we get an 81. So let's finish the show, see what kind of news we get. Survey says... Okay, so we're up about 30,000 people, which is solid. Storyline-wise, let's see here. We got Cruiserweights are at 51, Demon Rising is at 41, Hardcore is at a 42, World Titles at an 81, International is at a 53, and Tag Teams at a 50. If we look at a quick creative meeting, keep franchise players for who do you expect. Who's hot is, again, who's you expect, and who's not is sort of who do you expect. Except for Teddy Flynn, that's sort of interesting. But yeah, so plan is to do about this amount every week. So probably next show, since I won't have the minutes of overview at the start, I'll probably get to the first pay-per-view, and we'll probably try to do that weekly. So 2 weeks, then 2 weeks plus pay-per-view, 2 weeks plus 2 weeks plus pay-per-view, or something like that. Again, I'll just decide how much interest this gets, and how much people enjoy it. But I like booking it, and it's wacky, to deal with, because it's such a, sort of insane gap in overness between, basically your, top 4 or 5 guys and everybody else. If you notice, we've got, these 5 guys who are really over, these 6 guys who are kind of over, these couple guys who are, not really over. Mr. Lucha is seen as recognizable, but also, if you look at his actual popularity, in America, he's barely in the 30s, and then a bunch of people don't know it all. If we actually look at the free agents, let's just see. Oops, that's our people. There we go. So if we look at males who are active wrestlers who can work in the U.S. and they have at least an overness of 30 in the U.S. See, there's a decent amount. Oh, wait. To hire. That helps. See, there's some people. But also, there's a bunch of people who, like, I'm not sure who we'd want to bring in. Like, yeah. Like, some of these people are interesting in sort of like an alternate history kind of way, but also, yeah. Regardless, that's all for now. I hope you've enjoyed this. So, if you like it, go to like, comment below what you're enjoying, not enjoying, and subscribe to the channel for tons of TW20 content, including this, my long-running WCW 2003 series, MLW in the Ruthless Aggression era, Women's Revolution starting in 2010, and of course WCW 1993 with no Eric Bischoff. But that's all for now, so talk to you later, and adios.